Live-action American TV of the early 1990s was a truly alien landscape compared to TV of today, being dominated by sitcoms such as Seinfeld, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Friends. TV made for adults was comparatively desolate to the wealth of serious, gritty, and emotional drama found today. American animation of the time was arguably far more experimental, with shows like Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series, and Rocko's Modern Life pushing the boundaries of what was possible on television, with The Simpsons being considered the edgiest as well as most popular and acclaimed show of the time. While not as puritanical as the 1980s, there was a general lack of immorality on TV, with on-screen sex, violence, and swearing all being relegated to the silver screen, with film being seen as groundbreaking, adventurous, and highbrow, while television as ordinary, safe, and comfortable, and lowbrow. However, as always, there was a quiet desperation for something different, something real, with people questioning if TV could explore the same levels of grit, depth, emotion, and engagement that movies had for decades. There would soon be one channel which answered this. Oz started in 1997 and would go on for a total of 56 episodes. Oz would have been mind-blowing for the average viewer of the time. It was gritty, dark, violent, vulgar, sexual, political, and often downright nihilistic. It was the spark that marked HBO's ascendancy as a media titan, being the first one-hour on TV drama ever produced by the network. It laid the groundwork for nearly every other behemoth the network ever produced, including Game of Thrones, Deadwood, The Wire, and Sopranos. To understand how influential, we should start with the one constant throughout the series: the prison itself. To understand why Oz was so groundbreaking, we should start with the one constant throughout the series: the prison itself. Oz takes place in Oswald Maximum Security Penitentiary in New York. Oz remains one of the few shows ever willing to take place in a U.S. federal prison. Despite there being a whopping 2.2 million federal inmates, put that in perspective, that's more than the number of doctors, psychologists, plumbers, and Uber drivers combined. Beginning of the 1990s, there had been a massive outbreak of crime TV, such as Law and Order, NYPD, and Cops. All of these had an emphasis on catching the criminal and restoring law and order by the end of the episode, with little inquiry into tracing the origin of the crime. These shows were by and large predictable, episodic, and unchallenging, but more perniciously, they reinforced the anti-crime zeitgeist of the time. These shows helped instill the popular perception of the criminal justice system, police, prison, and punishment as the sacred guardians of truth, freedom, and the American way, and they were given free rein to treat prisoners with absolute malice and contempt, stripping them of their most basic rights and humanity. To portray criminals as anything other than deviant scum was anathema to the time. Few shows dared challenge this hegemonic consensus. Well, of course, there was 1994's classic Shawshank Redemption, which focused on the prisoners' compassion, hope, and solidarity, showcasing the prisoners to be real human beings, as well as the corruption and cruelty of the guards and warden. Oz has a much more direct message. The criminal justice system is fucked. Oz uses all of its episodes to perfectly showcase nearly everything wrong with the criminal justice system, from its complete abandonment of the principle of rehabilitative justice to the cruel, sadistic, and barbaric treatments such as guard beating, corruption, and abuse, and often rape, to the senseless micromanagement of the prisoners' lives, all at the behest of corrupt politicians, all prison labor exploitation, resulting in a complete loss of privacy, dignity, family, and freedom, and humanity. The gross injustice at the heart of America's brutal, senseless, dysfunctional, and profit-driven criminal justice system could take hours to scratch the surface of, but Oz does an incredible job covering so many topics that remain incredibly relevant to this day. All this brings us to our first character. Tobias Beecher enters the prison as a meek, passive, and everyday salaryman who, due to one very, very, very bad mistake, ends up serving a 15-year sentence. His past life destroyed, Tobias at first serves as a surrogate for the upper middle class white audience member who couldn't imagine actually committing a crime, but for whom Beecher represents their worst fears of what would happen to them if ever convicted. Beecher regularly interacts with a host of other characters, starting with Vernon Schillinger, played by the kindly J.K. Simmons. Schillinger at first appears to be Beecher's savior, but oh shit, wait, he's a fucking Nazi. Vernon is pure fucking evil at times, being the closest the series has to a consistent villain. But what's so great about Schillinger? He's not your average, typical cliche Hollywood skinhead. When asked what he believes in, he would tell you that he stands for typical conservative ideals such as faith, family, and country, and treating black people like shit. Things completely unoffensive to the average American, which I feel is relevant for some reason. Vernon Schillinger is a ruthless Machiavellian cunt, but more importantly, he's about as politically correct as Archie Bunker or Eric Cartman.
We don't want no more part of England, and for your information, England is a fag country.
Goddamn Jew mouth! Good job, Jew. Jews. Stop, Jew. You're Jewish. Dude is Jewish. Jew. 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 I told you Jewish people don't have rhythm.
Schillinger strips Beecher of all his dignity, autonomy, and respect, sending him in a downward spiral. Beecher is brutalized, raped, emasculated, and loses all comforts afforded to him in his past life. This all reaches a boiling point, causing Beecher to radically transform into a hardened criminal, and this is just the first season. Throughout the rest of the series, he struggles with his morality, identity, and sexuality, falling in love with Chris Keller, a very, very, very bad man who Beecher can't help but love. The relationship is legitimately one of the better gay relationships I've seen to this day. Gordon Glenn is the archetypical conservative hard-ass stiff. He's consistently cynical about rehabilitating prisoners, instead just favoring plain punishment. What's so great about his character is he's never portrayed as sadistic, corrupt, or unreachable. Only harsh and old-fashioned, but fair and perfectly juxtaposed with Gordon Glenn. It's Tim McManus, the idealistic but sensible head of Emerald City. He consistently pushes for rehabilitative justice. He's clearly a good person, always striving for the best of everyone, but he consistently struggles with personal anger and lust, often letting his emotions get the best of him. In spite of him being a surrogate for the optimism of the writers, he's never presented as ambiguously correct. He is perfectly juxtaposed with my favorite. Played by Dean Withers, Ryan O'Reilly is an archetypical handsome, cocky, and tough guy, whose life is greatly complicated by his mentally challenged brother Cyril, his childhood trauma and abuse, and his serious spanning love of the kind, compassionate, and beautiful, if hopelessly naive and forgiving nurse Gloria. Sounds like a pretty typical character, right? Wrong, because Ryan O'Reilly is a fucking ruthless psychopath who will do anything to advance his own personal goals. He's one of the best portrayals of what good intentions lead to horrific outcomes, if not properly held. Past and present self, embarking on a journey of self-discovery. Character in the show, Kareem Saeed. Kareem Saeed is incredibly fucking based. By that I mean he's the one character with the most principles in Oz. He's amazingly multifaceted. He's a charismatic natural leader who's capable of uniting the downtrodden and the oppressed. Though often dogmatically committed to the Quran and his Muslim faith, the fierce opposition to anything that he sees as deviant or a corrupting influence. He's All in all, he feels like a combination of the hyper-morality of Ned Flanders with the revolutionary spirit of the Black Panthers. Perfectly juxtaposes off nearly every other character, putting their ideological convictions to the test. All these characters bring us to how Oz excellently explores a huge range of themes, from race to religion to spirituality to sexuality to sociology to existentialism and human nature. Now let's state the obvious. Oz is political. Oz tackles both the interpersonal and institutional racism interwoven into the prison system. First of all, it should be obvious that characters like the fucking Nazi are bad. Oz points out the racism inherent in the prison system. Here are some neat stats. Oz is never race reductionist. Oz also tackles class and poverty. As pointed out by nearly every statistic ever, poverty and crime are intimately interconnected. Even more so than race. In fact, the main reason for the 1350 is because of poverty inflicted by decades of systemic racism and neoliberal capitalism. Oz also brushes up on privatization and its insidious effect on nearly every aspect of the prison system. There are dozens of other characters with satisfying, compelling, and interesting personal journeys and character relationships found in the minor characters throughout Oz, though I struggle to describe any of them as minor. All of them feel significant to the plot themes and experience overall. There's the Governor Devlin, a scumfuck asshole Machiavellian politician whose only interest is in his own personal fame and fortune, utterly callous to the well-being of prisoners. All in all, he's perfectly described by the show as the worst of white capitalist society. There's preacher Ray Mokata and sister Peter Marie, who both provide a compassionate, reasonable hijinks of Rebido and Ruth Smallest, with some of the most legitimately satisfying character relationships and character arcs in the show, giving the show a real sense of heart. And finally, there's the character Augustus Hill, who more so than any other character really does make Oz special. Special, I mean truly unique. His monologues are bizarre, thought-provoking, and absolutely fucking hilarious. One of the most important things to mention about Oz is just how funny it is. Oz really does find hope in the darkness through its sense of humor, realistic it may seem. In spite of how crushing the show can feel at times, there's a real empathy and belief in humanity beneath all the cynicism. Each of the characters, no matter how fucked up, always retains a desire to live, a desire to grow, a desire to become a better person than they were yesterday. Oz still remains one of the best and most humanizing portrayals of prisoners I've seen to this day. It's incredibly influential to me, and truly a hidden gem throughout the medium. It launched perhaps the greatest television network today. Oz was a cultural phenomenon while it aired, failing to win a single Emmy. However, whether anyone recognized it or not, the lasting legacy of Oz is immense. Without it, the landscape of modern TV may have been unrecognizable. It's not uncertain is that Oz remains a truly worthwhile journey for anyone willing to walk this strange yellow brick road. Peace.